Okay, we're back. It's COMP308, and it's week 10, lesson 10, part 5. And we're talking still about Mongo. We did a little bit of stuff on the command line here, right? So here's my command line for Mongo. We left off like this. But what about if I want to, I have this user collection here. So I have this DB users, I did this DB users.find, and I found all users. But what if I want to filter for only one user? How do I do that, right? Well, I start typing like this. I go db users.find, and inside there, I want to look for, what if I just said, I want to look for the name Thomas, right? I want to look for that. I don't know, maybe I can just search for this. Can I find that? And it says, oops, it says I've got a syntax error. I can't really look for just one key of Thomas. I can't do that. Right? Okay, so how about if I do this query, db.find, and I know I want to find a username, so username, and the username is, my username is Thomas, right? Can I do this query, right? And oh, by the way, I can't go db.find. I got to be db.users.find because I got to search a specific collection, right? db.users.find Thomas. Yeah, it didn't come up with anything. Okay, db.users.find. Let's type it again. Username. I'll be okay. Thank you. Thomas. Yeah. So that finds me. That gives me everything. That gives me not just my, the record, the whole record comes out, right? How do I filter this thing now? I can find other users. I can say, instead of username, and let me just do this again. If I go dbusers.find, and I pipe it into for each loop, I convert it to JSON again, right? If I do that, if I notice here, I have my username is one key and value pair. Then I have this user info object that's inside of my user object. So here's my user object. Each user object it's just an array of users, right? So my first user object has an ID, a username, a password, then a user info, which is another object, right? It's an embedded object inside of my object, right? How do I access first name? Can I search right to first name? Let's do that. So db.users.find, and again, and I want to go to first name. First name, got to be specific, right? Equal Tom, right? Didn't come out. How do I access my inner element? db.users.find, right? Think about this in another way. Instead of first name, it's user. I'm going to call it user info, right? And inside there, we want to go another. I'm going to call it level, right? In my user info, I want to look at my username. Oh, sorry, my first name. If I'm not wrong, and I want to find Tom as my first name. Does that do it? So how do I access these inner levels? Because remember, I have two levels, right? db.users.find, pipe that into for each loop, right? And print JSON. I can't. I like your thinking though. But the idea here is in the query, in the find, in the round brackets, in the find, and again, this is where you go back to your operators, right? So here's my operators, and if I look at my find operator, there's also find one. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's go to my find operator. It's very, very well documented. Here's my criteria I'm looking for, and it says here's my projection. And my projection, basically I can do things like my filtering. I can do filtering with my projection, right? So here's an example. So I've got my field 1, whatever the Boolean name is, field 2, and I can keep on doing things. If I want to base, this is my projection. So I can say I only want you to return, my return is only going to be, this is my filter, I only want you to return the username. I don't want you to return all the other data, right? And an idea of that was, here's some additional things. I want to have my quantity, and I want to filter my quantity that's greater than 25, right? So I'm looking for a quantity that's greater than 25. Or I want to find an ID of 5, okay? I want to look for an ID in, here's interesting, in, right? Here's 5 of this. Maybe this is what I need to do. In, I got to use my in operator, right? I can also have collection find. In my collection, I want to find a field that has greater than this value and less than this other value. There's lots of control here for my query. This is how you do all your querying results for stuff. Here's my ID, and this is like the collection of students and stuff that it's going to kind of pump out. Here's my arrays, my BIOS find. I'm going to look inside an array, and embedded documents, because that's what I really have. So here's my this is like what I've just done, my embedded document. So I want to find, I want to look at my first name. How do I do things? First and last, and in that order, right? This is what I have to do. I have to put my find, be my first name, my name, and then first name and last name in this order. Just like I did actually. I just didn't do it properly, right? Here's an example, another idea. So the name field must match the embedded document exactly, and the query does not match documents with the following name fields. First, aka, last, and so on. So my embedded object, I'm calling an object, is just another document, because I can embed documents within documents. Right? Almost like what I'm doing is I'm saying, give me another record within my record. Almost like my field is a record of its own. That's what I'm saying, right? And they give some examples of these, what they call projections, which are just filters. Okay, so let's try this out. So the documentation is pretty good. Let's try this out. So I want to say something like this. I want to find in my users database, my users collection, I want to find a name, my username, right? Which is Thomas, right? And I want only to find my username, only my username is shown, right? And I'm going to make it so it's 1. Now I need to put this in, I need to put this in curly braces. So if I don't put this in curly braces, it doesn't understand what I'm trying to do. So if I say this, then that should work. Did it work? No. Try this out again. Sorry, to make sure, because I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting, and I don't want to forget. Yeah, I need to use curly braces for sure. It's the projection that I want to find. I did it right. Because if you don't do the projection properly, it won't work. Like when you want to say, I want to have my ID, but only IDs. I don't want to show. Everything in my database. I only just want to show my username, right? So my projection is what's returned, almost like, if you will, and this says, if you think what it says here, it says returns a cursor to the documents that match the query criteria. When the find method returns documents, the method is actually returning a cursor to the documents, a pointer. That's what it really is, right? And then what I want to do is, my second thing is, and this is field 1, field 2. This is what my projection parameter takes a document of the following form. Oh, it's got to be a document of its own. So it can't just be my first document. It's got to be a document of its own. I did it wrong. So here's how it's done, like this. So instead of this, it ends here, and then I do a comma, and here's my document for my projection. I only want my username. See? Now it also returns my ID, because unless I specify that I don't want to return my ID, right? Which can look like this, username 1, right? And I can say ID 0. I don't want the ID. Oops, ID 0. So that only returns my ID, my username, without the ID. So my projection is actually a filter, what I'm filtering for, right? Because I don't want to have all my entire document returned to me. Remember, when I do a get or put operation, or one of those kind of things, what I'm actually doing when I do a get is I get the entire document returned to me. So and if I want to filter it, I need to use this projection piece, this filter, that allows me to only specify what thing I want back. If I don't do that, I'm going to get a whole group of other information that I don't need back into my JavaScript. All right? So again, let's say I want to find a user with an ID of 0. So db users.find, right? And here's my username. I don't want to find my user. I want to say my ID, right, of 0. So I want to find a username with an ID of 0. Okay, if I just put that in there, then I get the entire username. Here's Mark, right? But I want to filter, so the ID of 0, I don't want just that. I want him to give me, right, his, what am I looking for? I'm looking for his user info. I want you to return user info to me. Okay, so I want to say, but I only want to say, only want to say my user info. That's all I want back. And I want that to be a 1. 1 means true, 0 means false. So what I'm looking for is anything I put a 1 to in my projection, I'm saying, give me that, deliver that one. But don't deliver the other stuff. But I don't want from here, when I'm looking for my ID of 0, I don't want my ID back. So I'm going to say, in here, I want to say, but don't give me my ID back. So 0 means I don't want my ID back. I'm only filtering for my user info. That's it. So I'm going to get all this other information here. Okay, and let's pump that into a for each loop, right, with a print JSON parameter. Okay, well, I didn't really return anything, first of all. Let's try this out again, because my user info, I spelled incorrectly. Right, I spelled it user info. So I'm saying it's just typing errors, right? If I go like this and press enter now, I get this. Here's my user info. It says first name Mark, last name Smith, email, and so on. So I can specifically tell when I do a query, what it returns back is a cursor, a pointer to the object or the document that I'm looking for. Okay? Now, querying is very important. If you don't know how to query a database, your database is, skills are out the window. You need to be able to do a query. You need to be able to do an update. How do I update? So far I've done a deletion. I can delete. How do I delete a document, right? How do I drop a document, right? So let's go back to operators. And I can do collection stuff, right? Here's my collection stuff. I want to drop a document. How do I drop a document? And these are collection methods. Here's our database methods. And how do I do, here's cursor methods, different cursor methods, cursor add options. There's many, many options here, right, to look at. But I really want to drop a collection or drop a document in my collection. How do I do that? So I go here and I go drop document MongoDB. So I want to get rid of my document. Well, I have to use the remove method. So whatever my document is called, I got to search for it. Instead of using the find, I use the remove, right? So I go back in here and I want to drop Mark. I don't like Mark. I want to keep Tom, but I want to drop Mark. How do I do that? I'm going to go db.users.remove, and I'm going to look for a document that has a username, right, of Mark, and I want to drop that one, right? So I use the remove method. Now if I go db.find, users.find, then I don't see Tom, right? I don't have another one. I just have Tom in there, right? So I've got I know how to delete. I know how to create, right? I know how to read. That's my query. How do I update? I want to add stuff to Tom, right? So here's my modified documents. So query documents, insert documents, I want to modify documents. Okay, let me modify them. How do I do that? Well, I want to update a specific field in a document. I go document, whatever it's called, .update, and I can specify a field. So for example, if I want the username to be something else, right, I can use the update method. It's pretty simple. Let's try this out. So I go, let's clear the screen. I go db.users.update, right? Well, which one am I updating? I want to update my, and let me just take a look and see how this is done. Here's what it says here. I'm looking for this item, right? And the format is my item that I'm updating, right? Set the update operators to change field values, right? Update an embedded field. So I want to say ABC to whatever it's going to be, right? First, I got to find the item, right? And then whatever item I find, that's what I'm updating. All right? And if you notice, they have this item and set, whatever the item is set to, right? And let's take a look at that again. Here's my category clothing, right? And then I'm going to use my set method to change my the results inside. So I need to use my update method, but I got to find something before I update it. So let's try that on the command line. Then we'll end for the day. So I'm going to update username, right? That's Thomas, right? I got to put that in my curly braces again, right? And I want to update the username, right? Let me try this out if it works like this, to Conan, right? Will this work? Well, it says matched, inserted, modified. So let's take a look at my document now, db.users.find. I have one username, and he's Conan, but the rest of the stuff got wiped out, right? Take a look. That's bad, right? Everything after the username is wiped, right? So how do I just modify that field, right? Because I modified my record, so that's the only thing that's in there, right? So and again, it says what I modified, right? And if it looks like I can set, specifically, I can use the set method inside my, just to set that one thing. I can't undo, by the way. There's no undoing, eh? Once you're done with Mongo, it's done. It's over. So if I ever want to insert these things again, I would have to do the same thing over and over again. Okay, so this is an intro to Mongo. I wanted to leave it here. I need you guys to look at these basic commands with Mongo, because when you understand this, when we do something along the lines of this later on, I've got a little to-do app that I kind of built for us to look at. And let me just take a look at this. I'm just going to exit, first of all, from Mongo, right? And I'm going to go into my to-do app really quickly, right? So I'm going to go into to-do app, right? And I'm going to say npm start if everything goes well. If I haven't broken it, I haven't broken it yet. That's good. My to-do app looks like this, right? Here's my to-do app I built with Angular and Mongo, right? So what it does is I have some stuff I've got in here. I use the Mongo database. I want to add a new to-do, mark assignments. That's a to-do, right? And I want to create it. It adds it in. If I was to go back in there to check to see if I've got persistence, right? I got mark assignments in there, right? If I click onto it, I can say, I have a note that I can add in that says, need to mark assignments for COMP308, right? I'm going to update that. It's going to take me back. if I go back in there, it says that note, right? I can cancel, and then I can also mark it as complete, right? So it's completed, right? I can also search in here for specific things. Like for example, if I want to find begin, right? It'll find one of the to-dos. So this is the Angular piece, the search field that allows you to filter, right? And this is all working with Mongo, my Mongo database in the back end, right? So if you look at the Mongo database piece, these are all the operations that are going on here, right? So if I want to go here and take a look at it, I'm just going to drop out of this data, stop the operation here, and go back into Mongo, right? If I want to say show DBS, right? I've got my to-do app, right? So I want to look at my to-do app now. So I'm going to say use to-do app, right? And if I go show collections, I've got my to-dos, right? So I'm going to say db.todos.find, and these are all the to-dos I got in here. And it includes things like a note, all the stuff here in the database. Now, so all this stuff happens with, it does creation, updating, deletion, all that stuff that it does here. So I can do an update, a creation, deletion, all that in here. So all my CRUD operations, right? I'm going to share this one. Actually, I have it shared, I think, online. If you look at my GitHub, it's called ToDo App. And it gives you all the details you need to do a Mongo with Angular application for ToDo App. Now, it doesn't do authentication. That's the other piece we're going to tackle. And I'm going to talk more in detail about this next week before we do our cloud demonstration on Wednesday. Okay? See you guys next week.